Hey friends, welcome to another episode of COVE Ocean Connector. I'm joining you from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, here at COVE, the Center for Ocean Ventures and Entrepreneurship. Next to me is Stella Maris, a very exciting technical project we have on the go. You'll hear lots more about it this summer, so stay tuned. Before we begin today's Ocean Connector, I'd like to thank our presenting sponsors, Cox & Palmer Law Firm and Killam Properties, and of course a founding sponsor of COVE, Irving Shipbuilding. Today's conversation is going to be really exciting. We're talking to the president and CEO of Sensor Technology Limited. So let's get things on the go and kick things off. Thank you. Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Kyle Burton. I'm here at the Center for Ocean Ventures and Entrepreneurship, COVE, for another episode of COVE's Ocean Connector. This is our premier monthly series where we speak with a really interesting individual from anywhere around the world. Today we're joined right here at COVE in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, to talk with a really interesting person who runs a company called Sensor Technology Limited. I'm here with Niru. She's the CEO of Sensor Tech. Welcome.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for having me.
How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Blustery winter day. What can I say? Proper winter.
That's right, a good Nova Scotia winter.
Good Canadian winter.
Absolutely. It's a good time to get out on the ski hills and really bask in all the glory here, the natural resources we have in Nova Scotia.
Absolutely.
So thanks for joining me today. Really excited to learn a little bit more about Sensor Tech, maybe some things that I don't know and the viewers don't know. And learn a little bit about your personal history and kind of understand where Sensor Tech is and where they're going.
Yeah, it's great to be here. We've had a lot going on in the last year since I've been on a last Tenant talk, so I think we've got some exciting things to share with you.
Yeah, some great updates for sure.
Absolutely.
So for the viewers that are watching that don't know you personally, can you give a little bit about your background, how you started in Ocean Tech, and how you became the CEO of Sensor Technology?
Well, it all kind of started with this. Those that know me know that I have a big love for pottery, and you can see some in our facility here. Sensor Tech actually started as a pottery in Ontario, where our headquarters are in Collingwood, Ontario. A place called Blue Mountain Pottery. We started off making, mugs and ducks and vases, and then eventually started making high-tech ceramics. And it's a family business, and so I was born into it almost, and never expected to stay. I wanted to roam the world and work for other companies, but eventually found my way back to the company and took over about 14 years ago, and have been doing what I'm doing since then, and that's how Ocean Tech found me, actually. But my background is geophysics, and I consider myself a rock geek. I like rock acoustics, and not the cool kind, but the earth science kind, and so it lends itself really well to what we do in Ocean Tech.
Fascinating. How does the company go from pottery to high-tech Ocean Tech equipment?
A fellow named Eswar Prasad, who's my dad, and he had his PhD in something called Piezo ceramics, which is what we make. It's a high-tech ceramic, and it's what Sonar has been using for decades now, 50, 60 plus years. And that technology is kind of the heart of how the company started. We had some funding from the Office of Naval Research, ONR, and they wanted multiple sources for piezo powders and ceramics, not just in the US, and so that's how we got our roots. But we went from making this kind of stuff to making really, really high-tech stuff. And we still do that in our facility in Ontario.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a ceramic that's in pottery and a ceramic that's in piezo ceramics?
Well, there's about 20 different steps that go into making a piezo ceramic. The big part of it is that we electrode it. So instead of a glaze that would go on a piece of mug like this, we actually coat it in silver. That's what we use. Some companies will use gold, and that gives it the electrode. And then we put a high voltage, high temperature through it, and it aligns all of the poles. We call it the poling process. And that makes it a piezo ceramic. So when you push on a piezo ceramic, voltage comes out. But it also works conversely. I think that's what makes it kind of cool. Rock nerd. You put voltage through it and it actually expands. in and out. So it works like an underwater speaker in that sense. So when you're projecting noise, they call them projectors, or like a microphone when you're listening. So it's listening for vibrations underwater made by a projector or another sound source, and it turns that into an electrical voltage. And that tells you sort of how far it is, how big the noise is, and it tells you lots of information. It's how we make images underwater, through that sort of echolocation.
Super important stuff, and you have to make sure you get that right so you can have an optimal sound channel.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's really easy to get wrong.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Especially you're probably dealing in very small measurements and getting everything precise. It's like baking a cake. You got to do it just right.
That's right. Too much of one thing and things deflate like you would in a cake, and same thing works underwater. It needs to be really, really precise, or the image doesn't make sense. And then you're making decisions with the wrong information.
I guess that's where it comes in very handy for a company like SensorTech that's been in the business for almost 40 years now. Mm-hmm. You've learned how to do it right along the way.
Yeah, we've made lots of mistakes, just like every other company does, and we learn from them. And we have a pretty great team, pretty young management, I would say, but most of us have been within the company at least 5 to 10 years, and so you kind of have those building blocks and learn from your mistakes, make it better.
Yeah, iterate and continue to innovate,
Yeah.
So recently has been really exciting in the last few years in your company. You've recently expanded from Collingwood, Ontario. You're now here at COVE. Even your COVE expansion has been quite rapid. I remember the very early days, even before COVE was open, you had a single desk.
That's right.
Now you have multiple thousands of square feet.
We do.
And a large staff here on site. Can you explain about that process, why you chose COVE and Nova Scotia for an expansion, and how things are going?
Well, it's going really well. That's a good thing. We started here because I wanted to have some kind of footprint in Nova Scotia. What I'd been learning through trade shows and contacts within the industry is that the HRM has become the hub of ocean tech. And so to have a presence here would really help a company that's pretty isolated in Ontario, pretty far from the ocean. You don't hear about things in Ontario. That's the thing. And so we started with the desk, and I was supposed to be here every 6 weeks to be able to book a boardroom and have a meeting here and there. And then the office came available. And suddenly we have an office, I have a marketing team, and then a bay became available, and suddenly we have production staff. And I'm moving part of our facility from Collingwood here. And it came at a good time. It seems almost fortuitous that we were kind of, we were filled to the brink in Collingwood, and we're trying to expand there. And the expansion there requires a lot of space because it's machinery to machine the ceramics. We need the footprint. And so instead of looking at a fourth building and buying a fourth building there, our fourth building became COVE. And, people ask, well, it's kind of far, 2,000 kilometers away for a new building, but being in the center of ocean tech, it made a lot of sense. And then being at COVE, we figured out really quickly that staffing is so easy here. There's such high quality individuals that are looking for opportunities, and so we've been so fortunate to find great people, and it just kind of snowballed. And so now we're in this beautiful space that we got from another tenant here at COVE, and we just expanded again. And so we keep needing more space, and I think that's a good indication that good things are happening here.
No, I've seen that firsthand. It's been exciting to watch. Just recently, for those watching in February, we're filming at the first week of February. You've just installed a brand new, basically built your own level within your space because you needed more facilities.
Yeah.
And you were able to build up on these tall ceilings that we have to be able to accommodate that. So. Lots of expansion.
So we just finished the mezzanine. I think just this morning, actually, they were doing the final walkthrough. But we've added quite a bit of square footage to existing space. The second level is great. It's going to be great for storage. McCartney's just done the same thing, and so we took their lead and are using some of the same contractors that they did because they did such a great job. But what's going to be nice is underneath the mezzanine is we're going to be building fit for purpose epoxy and urethane molding area.
Nice.
And so we've been doing that here. Temperature and humidity really affects the quality of our products, and so having that fit for purpose will make a world of difference in getting better parts out to our customers. So that's going to go in the next couple of weeks, and we're pretty excited actually. That frees up more room in the manufacturing facility here. We're going to add more people. So all of this plays into sort of this big expansion that's happening with us.
No, it's great to see.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at supply chain issues throughout COVID, being able to do more stuff in-house is going to be very beneficial to kind of future-proof your business.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's what we like to control the process. So in Ontario, we make the ceramics, but we also make the powder. So the batter that goes into the ceramics, we bring in the raw ingredients and we do the formulation, we make the powder, we approve the powder, and then it goes into the ceramics that go into the sonar. And just like that, here we bring in the raw materials, the plastic and metal bits from various local machine shops, but then we want to be able to finish it, and includes testing and all of that as well. So we're just kind of creating more of a capability for ourselves here, and I think it's important. It's how we keep our IP as well, but also it's just controlling the process from beginning to end makes a better product.
That's pretty cool. So it probably takes some really skilled people to have on your team to be able to pull all this off.
Yes.
What type of backgrounds do people on your team have, especially on the, you mentioned about creating your own powder and recipes, things like that. It probably takes a special skill set to be able to do that right.
So we have everyone from chemical PhDs, mechanical engineers, environmental engineers, because health and safety is pretty important as well. I have a couple industrial engineers and a couple of geophysicists like myself to understand the end application. Here at COVE, we have mechanical as well, an acoustician whose background is physics. And then, of course, like the backbone of the company is all the production workers, and we do a lot of our training ourselves. We're lucky here at COVE is that the people that we found here some of them have worked in ocean tech, and so they've got a bit of a background, but usually we do all of our own training, and that's what we're used to in Ontario. So it's a pretty big mix of people, and that I think it makes for a nice little culture.
I've only met the people here at COVE, but they seem pretty great.
Yeah, no, they're fantastic. It's a great family.
And a great culture, too, that you've been able to instill on the team. I think, from what I can gather, a very innovative, kind of forward-thinking group of people who are kind of open to new ideas and trying out collaboration with other companies and working together.
Oh, yeah. No, and we're doing lots of that. And part of that is being at COVE is I've had this exposure that I wouldn't have had coming from Ontario if I had had a facility elsewhere. You don't get the exposure to some of the other ocean techers. And so being in the building and having people drop by, we used to have, Fridays, and being able to talk over a drink and maybe some snacks on a Friday afternoon. You get to know people, get to know what they're doing, and it's not a formal environment. And when you do that, you're able to talk about what their needs are, and sometimes there's actually great synergy. Sometimes you're just having chips and a drink, right? So, but all of that helps. I think all of that, you can create those connections in a really nice way, where you're not trying to pitch each other and sell each other. You actually end up working together, so it's kind of nice.
No, that's a good point. And it's a fun part of the COVE community is very social bunch.
Yeah.
A lot of people hang out together after work and do social activities. So I think that's an interesting part of the community here for sure.
I'm really looking forward to when some of the COVID restrictions lift and we're able to do a lot more of that, because the community here is so great. Everyone is so friendly and so open, and you don't really worry about competition so much here at COVE. You're just talking about cool stuff with friendly people. So it'll be nice when things open up again. We can have demo days and we can have different things here where we're collaborating even more.
Yeah, and hopefully soon we'll get back to having these ocean connectors back in person.
Yeah,
that was one of the highlights of the COVE experience, was the third Thursday every month, being able to meet with those people in person, have a couple of drinks, some food, and listen to a really interesting speaker. Today that's you, and today it's virtually,
yeah.
But hopefully in the near future we'll be able to do this again in Colin McLean Hall.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So you mentioned about the process of creating these piezo ceramics. What type of applications do customers use these in, and what kind of industries are they primarily used in?
So I would say almost 100% of what we make goes underwater. So it is the ocean tech market, but within that there's lots of different verticals. So defense is a pretty big user of our sonar products. Also oceanography, so whether it's monitoring or passive acoustic monitoring, bathymetry, hydrography is part of that. Oil and gas, and so the imaging that's used for the exploration to be able to create the geological maps underwater. They use a lot of hydrophones, which is sort of the microphone that we make, and aquaculture. Sort of those are the top four pillars that we consider as industries that we sell to.
Nice, and they're primarily sending data, receiving data underwater?
Yes, and so each one has a slightly different use case. So whether it's projecting sound underwater in order to listen for it, or creating an image underwater. In aquaculture, they're used for fish tagging is a big industry as well. So acoustic fish tags used to track migration patterns of fish or other sea animals. That's really important. Also the nets and seal deterrents. They use acoustic to actually deter seals from the big fishing nets. And so lots of different applications, and I could probably go on for hours about how they're all used. But everyone's a little bit unique, but how we fit into the market specifically is the custom work. We don't have a line of products that we just sell off the shelf. We don't manufacture to put on a shelf. People come to us because they can't find something on the market that already works for them. And because we make the ceramic, that's how we fit in, is that we can tailor the ceramic to then tailor the acoustic sensor that somebody's looking for in their system. And so whether they need just the ceramic, we'll sell just that. Whether they want the ceramic and they want it over molded with epoxy or urethane, we can do just that. If they want some electronics like preamplifiers, we can add that as well. And we're going to be expanding that. We're getting more into more electronics. We have great partners that help us with that. So we're offering a little bit more. It just depends on what our customer wants and what they pick from the value chain. But we can control all of it and sell from different parts. And that, I think that's what makes us a little bit different, is that nobody else does all of it. And we do.
Very, very bespoke then.
Yeah, very bespoke. Each one is totally different from the next. And that's why our customers come to us, because they can't get this anywhere else. And it makes it a little bit hard sometimes because of the confidentiality nature of it. I can't use a customer's name when I'm doing my marketing pieces, but we have a pretty great footprint in the world, I would say, with our customer base in all the different industries that we work in. But we are bound by so many NDAs that we're not allowed to share who they are and how cool some of this stuff is. But either way, like, we do feel, I think, a need in the market that's not currently there.
Fascinating. So it seems like it's a very specialized business. Is there many competitors around the world?
Very few. So in terms of ceramic manufacturing, we're the biggest one in Canada, and that's great. And we have a lot of American customers only because there's very few in the US. And the standardization of the materials is always there. So all of our competitors make the same materials. Each one has a formulation that's a little bit different. Nobody patents their formulation because then you have to disclose the formula. And so that's how we all work. And so all of our formulations are just a little bit different. And so you don't necessarily want to switch between suppliers very often because it changes the rest of the system. But I would say worldwide, in terms of ceramic manufacturers, with the exception of China, there's less than a dozen. I would say less than 5 even that are, and smaller companies are being gobbled up by big ones. And so there's even fewer. It's happening more and more. We're one of the few independents left in the business. When it comes to manufacturing both ceramic and hydrophones, I would say there's less than 3 in the world that do both. And so, yeah, we do. We have very few competitors. We have competitors in different spaces, but ones that do exactly what we do, very, very few.
Really interesting. Especially if you consider how much data, acoustic data is so important to the ocean industry. So few players, it's quite interesting for sure.
Well, and I think ocean tech is exploding. We're at the beginning of what I think is a really exciting 10 to 20 years where we're exploring the ocean and trying to understand more. We know so little right now, right? And it's big part of the globe, and we have a lot to explore, and there's a lot of different ways to explore. Acoustics is a really good way to understand what's happening, and all of these different players are using acoustics, and so I think we're pretty well placed in the industry to be able to serve lots of different markets and different companies, however they're trying to gather data.
It sounds like, based off your kind of spread of different industries that you're in, if there's a downturn in oil, for instance, or there's an uptake in aquaculture, that you're well positioned to kind of be serviceable to all those industries.
Absolutely. We weren't always like that. I would say when I started with the company, oil and gas was 75% of our sales. And that was great. We had a really consistent product. We made lots of it, and we had a really great foothold in oil and gas. But as many people know, oil and gas is pretty cyclic, and so I've gone through 3 up and downs with it, and during that time it became pretty important that we needed to diversify, get into other markets. The defense industry is always great, but it's hard to get into. And so we've been kind of working our way into lots of different industries to kind of stabilize, exactly how you said. Just when one goes up, the other one goes down, and we're equal that way.
So you talked a lot about growing here in Halifax, growing in Ontario, hiring young talent and getting people interested in careers in ocean tech is probably a challenge, but also a really interesting opportunity for a company that is working in a wide breadth of industries. Can you give us a little bit of background on your hiring practices and your goal towards hiring more young people?
Well, we always want new blood, and I think that creates new ideas and new mindsets. And we've got a lot of young people here. Actually, we've been pretty lucky. I think there's two, and I call them kids, and not out of disrespect, but just because I feel so much older than they are. We have two kids that came out of the COVE internship programs, and Joshua Awe, who was, I think, with Precise Design before, and fresh out of mechanical engineering at Dow. He's with us now, helping in some of the manufacturing improvements that we're trying to do. And Noah McNaughton, who did PR and marketing work at COVE before, finishing up his degree, is working with us part-time right now, full-time when he's graduating in the spring. And we're so lucky to have them. We're training them. They are new in the industry, but they come with some pretty great experience through some of the internships that they've had already. They're just such a great fit with the culture, and we're so lucky that we've found them. And they've added a lot of culture and color to our little family here, and so we've been really lucky that way. In terms of hiring other people, it's usually regular channels. We're looking online, looking through LinkedIn, recommendations. Chris Tenant, he came from Irving. He was a recommendation from a friend of mine that now works at Ultra, and so she said, I've got somebody that's looking, would you consider interviewing? And and that's how Chris came to us. So
nice.
It's lots of different avenues. Word of mouth goes a long way here, and we've been lucky that people approach us, and if I can find them a spot within the company, we hire them, because good people are good people. Yeah,
that's really interesting. It's kind of the interesting part of the whole community in Halifax is that it's very close knit. A lot of jobs don't get posted. A lot of hires are made without a job posting.
Absolutely.
And looking at some of your staff here, I'd probably say probably half of them would probably be in that boat.
Absolutely. I would say all but probably two found us over the years, and that's just great, and it shows how tight-knit the community is and that people talk to each other. Just this morning, somebody recommended somebody else to me. I've got a call later this afternoon, and we'll see how that goes, right? We eventually will need to hire more people on our commercial team, and so I'm putting it out there now. If anyone knows of anyone looking for a new position, that's something that I'm going to be looking for this year is somebody to help me lead the commercial team. So. And
the beauty of kind of that small knit community is you really find those really interesting people that the references mean a lot of things. The word of mouth, the recommendations from other people. We see that a lot here on the COVE team. We see the new hires that, hey, they were at this company down the road a couple of years ago. They've maybe gone out of oceans and they want to get back in. So it's really great to see.
Well, and I think people maintain really great relationships, and I think that's part of the Nova Scotian culture. That's what I'm noticing anyways, is somebody might leave your company and go somewhere else, but the relationships always tend to stay intact, and so you don't burn bridges, and so people can move within the industry. I think that just makes them more valuable as an employee personally. Person comes to you from somewhere else, and there's always good nature around it, and I think that says a lot about Nova Scotia and how people operate here. You wouldn't see that in the rest of the country. It's kind of nice.
No, it's a unique selling point for sure.
Absolutely.
Speaking of support and really great people, we have a lot of great support from government organizations and agencies across the province, across Canada. And I know you've been a recipient of some funding from ACOA for an expansion. I don't know if you can share a little bit more about that today, but that would be really interesting if you could.
Absolutely. We've been really fortunate since being here at COVE. I think we've been able to tap into some of the both provincial and federal agencies. And we recently announced some funding from ACOA. They're helping us do our expansion here at COVE with equipment and the the leasehold improvements that we need to do to be able to build the potting room and whatnot. And all of that, having agencies like ACOA support my vision for how I want this company to grow, it's just so fabulous. We also announced late last year some ocean supercluster funding. That's federal, thanks to working with other organizations at COVE and outside of COVE. Wouldn't have known these people without COVE, and so being able to create those collaborative projects, we were able to announce that first project, and that's kind of tied into our ACOA funding as well. So to be able to build this new product line of mini acoustic transducers, we needed some new equipment, and ACOA was very good to support us on that. So it's all kind of tied together, and it's part of some of the expansion that we're doing and the new product lines that we want to be presenting to the world over the next year or so.
Nice. When we all come out of quarantine and lockdown, CenterTech's going to be there with a brand new product to take on the world.
Absolutely.
So that product, it sounds like it's a smaller version of what you have now. Can you tell us why that's unique and why that's important to customers?
Well, and I think the trend that we've been seeing in ocean tech is unmanned vehicles, and that's sort of where this idea was birthed, and that the sensors that go on vehicles are very different than the sensors that go on ships. Or get pulled behind ships. And so the way you think about them, the profile of them, their size, their weight, how we integrate them into a vehicle, all of that has to be taken into account. You're not bolting it onto the bottom of a ship. It's a little bit different, and there's not a lot of manufacturers that consider all those things. And the complexity of trying to shrink things and really focus on the profile, it's not easy. There's some mechanical and acoustic challenges that go with it. And so the project kind of came from that idea that there needs to be a supplier in the marketplace that focuses and has a product line that can adapt to underwater or surface vehicles. And so that's where this Ocean Supercluster project came from, is being able to produce this line of bespoke acoustic transducers or receivers that can go onto vehicles and help with some of the exploration that's going to be happening and mapping the ocean over the next 20 years.
So important, especially you think Canada's coastlines, new ones that are emerging in the Arctic. Very important to have those uncrewed, with nobody on board, those robotics to facilitate all that.
That's right.
And being able to offload that data and communicate, control those devices is step one of all that.
And I'm sure you've seen this too, but vehicle manufacturers have really, really done a lot of work over the last 5 years and making those vehicles more accessible to be able to map and to do surveys. And so now I think the next challenge is making sure the sensors on board are really the best suited for what kind of work they're doing. And each of those vehicles sometimes have a different purpose, whether it's an aerial vehicle, whether it's a surface vehicle or an underwater. Each one has a different purpose. Each mission has a different purpose, and having proper sensors to do different things, not just acoustics, but all sensors, I think is going to become really important as we're gathering more data.
So one thing we've talked about is the culture of your company. Very proactive, very interesting culture that is very friendly, outgoing, likes to collaborate, also likes to have fun.
Yes.
So this is, I guess the kids call them stuffies.
They call them stuffies. We call him Echo. Echo the sensor bat.
So this comes from the radar point of view of what you enable with your products, and of course they use echolocation with bats.
That's right.
This product, you'll see it online. It has its own Instagram handle, I believe, doesn't it?
Echo the Sensor Rat has its own Instagram, and he's going to be virtually traveling the world over the next couple of months because he can't travel with me like I normally would to trade shows. And you're going to be seeing Echo in some really interesting locations. I think he had a music video last week. And yeah, we actually are hoping that Echo will be our source of education to the world about how acoustics works in a really basic way. And so the kids of SensorTech are really excited to show off Echo and how echolocation and acoustics works in the real world. And so you're going to see lots from Echo over the next little while.
That's fantastic. So make sure you follow online. SensorTech has a lot of great content on their social media channels. Echo the Bat has his own Instagram handle, which is kind of fun. We're going to see him all around the world.
Sure are.
And he's going to do some traveling when we can't, which is going to be a lot of fun. So if people want to learn more about SensorTech after this great interview that we just had, this great conversation. They can go online at sensortechcanada.com.
That's right. You can also find us on all the major social medias, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Just look up SensorTech and you'll find us there. And I think you'll be posting a little.
We'll post all this out as well. You'll see it here in a few moments when we cut to the credits. But can people also share, if they have an Echo, the sensor bat themselves, could they share from their locations?
Absolutely, and we'd love to repost where Echo has made it in the world. And a lot of people have Echoes with them, hopefully. If they don't, they can reach out to us and we'll get them one in their hands. We'd love to know where Echo has made its way to, and so they can tag Echo the sensor bat. And we'd love to see it, and we're trying to create a map of where all Echo's been, so that'd be great.
That's pretty cool. So thank you, Niru. I really appreciate your time today. We got to learn a lot more about SensorTech. I've learned some new things myself, which is tough to do considering I've known you now for 2 years. But I really do appreciate your time, and I think everyone learned a lot about the company and your background, and I'm sure they're dying to get their hands on one of these bats.
Thanks for having me. And Echo.
Thanks. Thanks so much for tuning in to today's Ocean Connector. I'm sure you learned a lot from Niru, her experiences, and more about her company, SensorTech. If you want to stay engaged and get notified for future COVE events, please go to coveocean.com and sign up for our newsletter and subscribe to our YouTube page to get timely updates. As always, we're looking forward to keeping you engaged in the conversation. Have a great day.